Escape from the tomb. You can't. The conversation is everywhere, positive, negative. The whole shebang is creeping through my Twitter timeline, my YouTube recommended. Just about everywhere I look is someone saying something about the tomb. Now, to keep it a buck, these last few weeks since the tomb has been released has been a bit more negative than positive. Maybe that's the vocal minority being negative as usual, and the internet seems to push negativity far more than it pushes positivity. But even in the comments of other videos, the debate on if the tomb is a good map or just reused content is pretty much the whole conversation surrounding it. And well, I am here to tell you that you are wrong about the tomb. Let's dive into it. Now, obviously everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and just like assholes, everyone has one. Some are just shittier than others. There's plenty of valid complaints about this map, but just because a complaint is valid, does that mean that said complaint hinders your ability to enjoy the map? I've gathered different comments that discuss people's criticisms with the tomb. These comments come from YouTube and first-hand arguments I've had with friends. This first argument is just one I've heard in conversations with friends recently, and seems to be a common complaint throughout online discourse, which also happens to be the most brain-dead criticism I've heard of the tomb so far. So I'll go ahead and address the most ridiculous criticism head on at the start of the video. The ice staff has no narrative reason for being on this map. Look man, this is a criticism that definitely could have been avoided had the writers taken the time to acknowledge something that could be seen as important. However, if this is a criticism you have of this map and somehow it hinders your enjoyment of the experience, I would say that's fine. I'd just expect you to keep that same energy with every single other zombies map that has this exact same issue. What is the narrative reasoning for the Thunder Gun being on Kino, Ascension, and Togder Toten? What is the narrative reasoning for the Ray Gun Mark II retroactively being added to Transit, Die Rise, and Mob of the Dead when Buried released in DLC 3 for Black Ops 2? What is the lore explanation for Takio's katana being a reward in Revelations, despite the fact he's carrying it on his character model's back? Why is there two ice staffs on the tomb, you might ask? Well, why can all four players wield Takio's katana in Black Ops 4 at the same time? I can continue to list nitpicks for hours to continue to prove this point that just because something doesn't have lore to it doesn't mean that it's bad. And truth be told, the answer to a lot of those questions is simply put because it's a video game, and a video game needs to be fun. Now, in defense of the lore of the stabs, the ice staff is arguably way more important lore-wise than most of the wonder weapons are. The ice staff, as well as the other three stabs, have history and were included in the groundworks that set up the mainline story in Black Ops 3. The main reason for Origins even taking place at an excavation site is because the location is where the Germans were deciding to look for the elemental stones, and they went digging there, which we then discover they were in Argartha. Anyways, I could see why the lore behind the ice staff matters when the entire map of Origins was built around the idea of 4 stabs. But to say that the ice staff not having definitive lore hinders your experience of the tomb, something that doesn't affect gameplay at all, I would say you're just robbing yourself of potential enjoyment while looking for something to justify your opinion. So now that we have that out of the way, let's take a look at a few more complaints about the map that I will do my best to course correct and explain why I think these opinions are wrong. Nostalgia bait. It's small and somehow empty. Characters barely have any new dialogue. The quest is short and buggy, and the way Black Ops 6 Zombies plays still has plenty of problems. The Golden Plate side quest would be a saving grace, except it's ridiculously difficult. The staff has no place in this map except to make people think of a much better time, or much better map, my bad, from a much better era of COD. This comment comes from LSB44446, so I'd like to dissect this comment piece by piece, starting with the nostalgia bait. Though this comment didn't elaborate enough on what exactly in the map is nostalgia bait, I'll just do my best to assume what they meant. The ice staff returning is a direct nod to Origins. There's pretty much no denying that. However, there are also environmental nods to details that started in Origins, like the rocks with the crazy place engravings on them. There's also the fact that this map takes place at an excavation site in France. Literally, the description of Origins as well. Not to mention, the tomb was the early name, the pre-production name for Origins. So they're reusing the Origins pre-production name in the tomb. I get it. Yes, Treyarch knew exactly what they were doing by not only taking the name, but by describing the tomb in the same way they described Origins. However, to play devil's advocate, at the same time, there was no confirmation that Origins was the place we were going back to. I understand how this could be misleading. However, allowing room for speculation is one of the main reasons zombies used to be so popular to begin with, but this time around, it seems to be a lose-lose situation. Hypothetically, we go back to Origins, and it's even more nostalgia bait by literally being a remaster that people would always dislike more than the original anyways. Or we go to a location that pays homage to that map in small ways like the carved rocks and the wonder weapon, and people still complain. People always say that they want something new until we get something new, and then they say it's not as good as the old. We get some of the best aspects of old maps to return, and suddenly it's just reused content. Treyarch made clear that this was a new experience in a blog post. They set the standards ahead of time, yet people still expected too much. I don't think paying homage to a previous map is necessarily nostalgia bait. Rather, it is exactly what I explained it as: small parts of a previous map returning to pay respect. The next complaint is that the map is small and somehow empty. Yes, I would agree that it is relatively a small map. However, is it empty? Absolutely not. There's a reason to visit every single room in the tomb multiple times. Each main room has a portal to go through, and almost every single room includes a side Easter egg. Each main room houses a lockdown for the quest. Each main room offers hidden power-up drop locations or intel to find. Even the hallways that connect each of the 4 main rooms have lanterns to shoot for the quest or as a trap. And they also have small dig piles for extra loot, which with depth perception allows you to complete a free ray gun Easter egg. Woo! Look, I genuinely cannot see how people look at the tomb from the perspective that it is hollow and lacking content. It's fine to say that you don't like the content it offers, but to say that it's empty is just choosing ignorance to all of the side content that the devs put into the map. The characters barely having any dialogue is a very valid complaint. We know the reasoning. Activision, get up off your high horse and stop using AI. End of discussion. The quest being short is an odd complaint when Mob of the Dead, a fan favorite, has you going to a bridge 3 times and collecting headphone power-ups to complete it. Yet I bet it's in most of your guys' top 5 zombie maps. Does a quest length matter? Or is it the quality of the quest itself? Maybe it's both, and that's just great. And the quality will always be subjective. There's someone out there who loves this map's Easter egg for the tomb, and sure, I do think it's fun, but I cannot say that I love it either. Nor can I change your mind on why you might think it's good or why you might not think it's fun to begin with. But a short Easter egg does not mean that it's a bad one. It's just an interesting critique, I guess. Not to mention, I genuinely also haven't had any bugs with the egg itself, but that's just my experience. I can't discredit yours. The way Black Ops 6 plays has plenty of problems. This is very subjective, but okay, not much I can do to combat such a subjective argument, so we're just gonna go ahead and move past this one. However, this next complaint is my favorite out of the bunch. The Golden Plate side quest would be a saving grace, but it's incredibly difficult. Whew! The age-old skill issue, baby. Do you want a participation trophy by chance? Look, people will complain that Zombies has gone soft, that it takes 500 hits to down you, but God forbid these players actually have to test their skill to get some sort of reward. The upgraded golden scalpel in Blood of the Dead would allow you to basically get to round 100 flawlessly by pressing one button, but it was a trial of dedication, patience, and skill, and the reward was well worth it. This egg expects you to perform at your highest level for a reward that completely changes your game, yet this time around, it's too difficult. This complaint holds no weight at all, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone else's opinion on the map, but to this guy, dude, LSB, get good. Bro, you're struggling. This is a skill issue, brother. And finally, this staff has no place on this map, except for the fact that it does. Because not only is it arguably a really incredible wonder weapon, it might be the best in Black Ops 6 so far, but it has also become far more powerful than the staff seen on Origins. It has updated animations, a completely new model, a bigger ice storm radius, and consumes half of the amount of ammo per charge shot than the original did. And narratively, sure, I get it. Maybe the writers will answer these questions about the lore of the ice staff in a later map. Maybe they won't. And if they decide not to, then we could revisit the discussion. Just don't forget that questions about maps like Buried in the Ether story were not answered until over 5 years later. So why is it so hard for us to just take a back seat right now and ask ourselves, Why is the ice staff here? And we could then wait for a lore explanation when we used to do that all of the time in previous maps instead of demanding the answer immediately. Here's a complaint that I'll once again be addressing piece by piece. By Witch Chloe. They say, I'm shocked at how much people are okay with this lazy ass filler content map. Almost every part of this map is reused content and the parts that are not suck. Maybe they had bigger ideas and ambitions for it, or maybe it was always planned filler. It's just crazy that even Black Ops 4's mixed bag of weird remakes were still more unique and ambitious than what we get nowadays. Like seriously, almost every map now is just which side of the map do you want to take to Pack-a-Punch, and then that's it. Sure, each new map still has its set of main quest and side Easter eggs, but outside of the Wonder Weapon and the Easter egg steps, new maps just don't add new mechanics to the map to make it stand out more, like Afterlife or Leroy. I just feel like I'm playing different flavors of the same map. Look, if you weren't calling me a shill before, you sure will after I respond to this. Lazy ass filler content map is the first critique of the tomb by this person, which once again is not elaborated on enough, so I'll have to do a bit of assuming. If you are addressing this map as filler in terms of narrative, then sure, I would actually agree. But what is it that makes a filler story in the narrative? I'd like to try and come to a mutual agreement on a definition of what a filler story is, something that we can all agree on. A filler story here is a story that plays very little importance or adds little substance to the overall main story. A filler story has nothing to do with gameplay of the map, just to clarify. Does that sound like what a filler story is? Because if so, then you are completely right about the tomb having a filler narrative. Unfortunately, if you are going to complain about it, you have to keep that same energy for Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil. Now, in defense of Mob of the Dead, the location of the map does eventually become incredibly important to the Ether story. But if you exclude all information told to us through other maps, radios, quotes, and maps like Revelations, and the timeline, and solely focus on the story told in just Mob of the Dead, though it's a great and amazing self-contained story, it is undoubtedly a filler map narrative-wise. The reason we have to separate the story told in specifically just Mob and Shadows is because we have not yet had a future map to flesh out the tomb, like we have had for the other two mentioned fan favorites. So we have to put the maps on even playing fields. So to critique the tomb for being a filler map narratively, which I agree, you then have to do the same for the other maps. And just to repeat myself, to hammer down the point, Mob of the Dead has a great story, no doubt about it, I think it's great, but by definition is a filler map narratively. Now, to go the route of content, I can't agree that this map lacks the depth to be considered a filler map. This map, once again, offers plenty of side quests that give rewards, a replayable Easter egg with a unique boss fight that mimics that of Dryzendrock's fight. Everything that has become a staple in a zombies map is here. So what makes this map considered filler? Almost every part of this map is reused content, and the parts that are not suck. So no part of this map is reused, homie. Like, none. We have a completely new environment, visuals, design, layout, everything is completely new. In fact, I would ask you directly, any of you guys, to show me one single room that is reused from another map. Please, I will eat my words. I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm beyond confident there isn't any sort of area or design or visual that is reused in this map. I can't sit here and tell you that the map doesn't suck when that's a subjective opinion, but what I can tell you is that this is not reused content. Even the staff that returns has had a complete overhaul and is not just simply reused content without effort being applied to it. Now, once again, I'll be asking you to apply the same critique of this map to another fan favorite, just because I expect you to keep that same energy and stand behind your comments. The complaint being, it's just crazy that even Black Ops 4's mixed bag of weird remakes were still more unique and ambitious than what we get nowadays. I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna tell you why fan favorite Dryzendrock is not ambitious or unique either. In fact, it is the most safely released zombies map that we've ever gotten. They did nothing but play every aspect in Dryzendrock safe with reused ideas that we've seen before. Every single bit of content that we see in Dryzendrock is either directly inspired or reused from previous maps. The bow, before even being upgraded, is a multiplayer asset which functions the exact same. The storm bow plays exactly like the ice staff in Origins. The plunger melee is just a rehashed golden spork from Mob of the Dead that plays hardly any differently. The rocket hazard is similar to the environmental hazard that the Origins robots create with the footsteps. The dragon heads to unlock the bow are just reskinned dog heads from Mob of the Dead. The Panzer is a reused boss from Origins, and I understand that the Origins Origins had a bit of a facelift with now shooting EMPs at you. However, if you're gonna give the Origins credit, you now have to give the Shock Mimic credit in the Tomb. Do you see what I'm getting at? Don't worry, I still have a few more for you. The jump pads used for traversal in Der Eisendrache are seen on Shangri-La as water boosters. The rotating Pack-a-Punch on Der Eisendrache is a mechanic seen in Call of the Dead. The Der Eisendrache rocket shield is a reused asset from Shadows of Evil. The map also reused the Wonder Fizz while offering no new perk on the map. The reused teleporter asset on Der Eisendrache is ripped straight from the Giant. The Ragnarok DG4, they're just reused assets from multiplayer. So now let me clarify my intent with this argument. I'm not trying to devalue Der Eisendrache or any Black Ops 3 map. I love that game to death, and it defined my teenage years. However, my goal is to get you to see that you have double standards. Look, it's okay when the game you like reuses assets, but it's not okay when the game you don't like reuses assets. This argument is full of double standards, not to mention completely incorrect by saying the Tomb is full of reused content. Now, their initial comment references the BO4 maps, which I do believe are some of the weakest in the series, and the Ether maps in BO4 are truly full of reused content. And for questioning its ambition, well, there's a reason Black Ops 4 Zombies was a colossal failure. And that's due to over-ambition and Jason Blundell crumbling under pressure to make a zombies experience that lived up to Black Ops 3. As for maps not having enough unique features to make them stand out, I agree. The incantations on Citadel de Mort was a great step in the right direction, and I was really hoping to see more of that type of content make a return in the Tomb. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of that. It's a massive L for the Tomb and Black Ops 6 Zombies as a whole. I really hope that they address this and fix this in future maps. Taking a bit of a detour with the next comment, which focuses on the boss fight, I'd like to first state my opinions on it. I think the DPS check system can work if it was somehow visually displayed that you were doing more damage, specifically to the health bar of the Sentinel artifact. Maybe some sparks on the health bar while dealing damage that builds towards the check, maybe it could work wonders. However, I'd like to still acknowledge that the Sentinel artifact does become a deeper translucent red the more damage you do until you pass the check. This is some sort of visual representation of damage being dealt, but I don't think that it's enough. The boss fight ramps up in difficulty very quickly once you get to phase 4, which it starts throwing out elite enemies left and right, and the early phases of the boss, they do not prepare you for that. Obviously, it comes out of left field, which might be seen as a challenge, but I'd still like to feel a more natural progression throughout the boss fight. The idea of fighting an artifact, it's incredibly silly to me. I mean, look, this is my live reaction of no spoilers or anything. This was it.
All right, start the vote, start the vote.
Got it. The boss design is cool.
Sentinel artifact.
Is it summon him? That'd be sick.
The boss is the artifact? What? What? Bro just started glowing red. What?
Shooting out a fucking laser.
What? Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do here. I'm getting behind cover.
However, we've fought dragons, a floating eyeball, giant elephants, invisible werewolves, and plenty of random stuff in the past, so it isn't the end of the world to me. However, the idea of having obstacles in an arena like this it's actually really cool to me. Avoiding all the red lasers keep you on your toes and aware of your surroundings, something that not all boss fights actually require you to do. I enjoy this fight, but it is a massive step down in quality compared to the Citadel and Terminus boss fights. So now to finally address this comment by Milo Ruffle Waffles. They say, yeah, the boss fight is nonsensical, and not being allowed to use GS45/staff on the boss is just a trash idea. To be honest, I find the Easter egg prior to the boss fight average in the map too, but the boss fight is not fun at all. It also takes so much time to finish it. Alright, so not being allowed to use a GS45 not only incentivizes weapon variety, as that is usually the meta gun, but also makes lore sense, as the artifact is built to protect the most dangerous substance in the world, Prima Materia, and would most likely be indestructible to explosive damage. So get punked. Nerd. Now, as for the GS45 and the staff not being used on the boss, I actually believe that is fine. This isn't the first time we've seen boss enemies be unbeatable using the Wonder Weapon. Hell, I mean, look at Shadows of Evil and Revelations. God forbid you go into those boss fights with either the Apothecant Servant or the Thunder Gun. You are so cooked if you do that. Anyways, it's important to acknowledge that in this fight, the Sentinel artifact is not where the difficulty comes from. It's the enemy spam they throw at you, which is up for debate if it's good boss design, but if you don't think it is, then keep that same energy for Dryzendrock's fight. Back to the point, the GS and the Ice Staff are both great weapons to have on your team during the boss fight. They do help with crowd control when you desperately need it. They just don't do actual damage to the artifact itself, which once you know that, you can forever avoid that problem in future attempts. It's okay that not every weapon is viable in a boss fight. That's like me complaining that my ballistic knife is doing absolutely nothing to the Eye of Odin in Voyage of Despair or the Avogadro in Alpha Omega. Different bosses require a different set of tools to take down. If the same meta weapons worked for every boss, you would complain that the fights are too easy and feel too samey. Spice up the way you play and experiment with different guns. And finally, you're complaining that the fight takes too long, which for the first attempt, I mean, maybe. It's called learning the boss fight, but if you are still taking more than like 10 or 15 minutes to beat the boss after a few runs, I hate to break it to you, buddy. You have a skill issue, and you shouldn't be blaming the game for that. So, this final comment in the video comes from a recent video by Tim Hansen, and is written by none other than Mr. T Lexify. You know the community is down bad when the new BO6 content is just making fun of people stating the truth about this mid-map. LOL. GTA 6 cannot come soon enough. Lex. Shut the fuck up. Your opinion went out the window when you were sitting there fondling a teenager's breasts. You call the tomb a mid-map, but I bet your good friend Lawrence would really like it. Hopefully the next map has a side Easter egg that teaches you how to eat pussy better, so maybe you won't consider it mid then. So finally, we've come to our conclusion. I've picked comments that sum up dozens upon dozens of complaints I've seen about the tomb, and have done my absolute best to apply these same complaints to different fan favorite experiences. It's to show you that some of these things you are complaining about have been in Zombies maps spanning over the last 10 years, including some of the fan favorite maps in all of our favorite Zombies game, Black Ops 3. Once again, I cannot change your mind on the tomb. That is fine, that's not my objective, but my goal here is to open your eyes, or anyone's eyes, to the double standards that this community has, that a fan favorite map is guilty of having the same issues as modern day maps, yet the fan favorite maps are void of all criticism. You say that you want to go back to what makes Zombies good, yet when they do, you still complain. It is good to criticize Zombies for what it is. It's how they continue to innovate and shake up the playstyle. To sit here and say, what they're putting out now is just reused content, when so many of these issues have always been present, is completely contradicting the argument that old Zombies was better. So I propose a question to you, the viewer. Was old Zombies truly as good as you think it is? Or is it riddled with plenty of the same issues that plague Black Ops 6 Zombies, and you just choose to be blissfully ignorant? Thank you guys for listening to me ramble on and on about these Zombies takes. I understand everyone's going to hate me for them. That's fine. I'm just trying to open a new conversation from a different perspective. I think it's okay to acknowledge some of your fan favorite maps and some of your personal favorite maps do have the same flaws as modern day maps. The community surrounding Zombies is ironically cannibalizing itself more than ever, and I'm just trying to stay consistent in providing new perspectives to the argument in a more civil and unbiased way. It's fine to disagree with me on these things, however, all I ask is that you tell me why you don't agree with me in the comments below. Please elaborate on your opinions. I'm looking to have this conversation. It's not just for views. I actually want to engage in how you guys think. I want to find some sort of middle ground for this conversation. So thanks again for watching this video, everyone. If you guys enjoyed it, or at least understand the argument I'm going for, and you want to stick around for more, please consider subscribing. It's the very best way to support me, and it helps the small channel out. Anyways, until the next one, piss off, everyone.